Episode 59, Shawnee Legends. Hey y'all, I'm Heather, and this is Poisoned Appalachia, the dark side of Appalachia. As always, thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed last week's episode on Georgia Tan. What an awful person. My birthday was last Tuesday, and this is the last year of my 40s, which is super sad. Next year I'll be 50. But I really don't feel that old at all, although this summer I've been dealing with a lot of hip pain. But overall, I feel like I'm in my 30s or I don't know, maybe even my 20s sometimes. Age really is just a number, I think. But enough about me. Let's talk about today's episode. I've done an episode on Cherokee legends, but I thought today I might talk about the Shawnee. They're a major part of the natives in my area. Everyone talks about the Cherokee, but not so much about the Shawnee. Natives are a very important part of Appalachia, and we really need to know more about all of the tribes in our area. The Shawnee are a Native American people in the northeastern woodlands. Their language, Shawnee, is an Algonquin language. Their pre-contact homeland was likely centered in southern Ohio, which is where I live. In the 17th century, they dispersed through Ohio, Illinois, Maryland, Delaware, and Pennsylvania. In the early 18th century, they mostly concentrated in eastern Pennsylvania, but disappeared again later that century across Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois, with a small group joining Muscogee people in Alabama. In the 19th century, the U.S. federal government forcibly removed them under the 1830 Indian Removal Act to areas west of the Mississippi River. These lands would eventually become the state of Missouri, Kansas, and Texas. Finally, they were moved to Indian Territory, which became the state of Oklahoma in the early 20th century. Which I talked a lot about that in my Trail of Tears episode, so I'm not going to go over that too much, but that's just wanted to give you a brief thing there. So that's where the Shawnee people came from. I've mentioned Chief Cornstalk before. My first episode was on his curse. And I mentioned the Shawnee a bit, but I just thought it might be neat to go into their legends. And looking through the internet, there's a lot of different information. Some of it seems a bit contradictory, so I'm going to try to piece together these legends the best I can. Let's begin with the Great Spirit. The creator of the universe, Wa-Sha-Manitou, is a term in Shawnee cosmology that refers to the Great Spirit, or the benevolent, omnipresent, fundamental life force that is part of the spiritual beliefs of many Algonquin peoples. The spiritual entity is believed to have recreated the universe, or the world, and is considered the source of all life and positive manifestations in the universe. The Great Spirit, known as Wa-Sha-Manitou, is considered the supreme creator of the Shawnee people and the world, giving them the land and the gifts of maize, beans, and tobacco. While often conceptualized as malevolent or benevolent being, within the Shawnee spirit understanding, two distinct deities are associated with him. Our grandmother, who is said to be responsible for creation and drawing souls to heaven, and Wa-Sha-Manitou himself, a masculine deity associated with prosperity and guidance. Manitou gave the Shawnee their home along the Ohio River and expected them to remain true to their beliefs and traditions to prosper, which involves ceremonies like the bread dance given by our grandmother. Actions of Wa-Sha-Manitou, creation of the earth and spirit. Manitou is credited with creating the earth and giving it to the Shawnee people after a great flood. Gift of crops. Manitou, through a celestial woman, gifted the Shawnee with maize, beans, and tobacco, essential for their prosperity. Expectation of faithfulness. The Great Spirit expected the Shawnee to remain true to their 7 beliefs, and by doing so, they would reap the rewards of a prosperous and unified future. I read this story. The Shawnee believed that they were the first to be created by the Great Spirit. As the myth goes, they were transported over a large body of water to an island. They were the first people to live on the earth. Another version goes into more detail describing how the Shawnee were made from the brain of the Great Spirit, and all other Indian tribes were descendants of them. It also describes the French and English being created from the Great Spirit's breasts, the Dutch from the feet, and the Virginians from the hands. So, there you go. Our grandmother is who I'm going to talk about next. Most Algonquin cultures have a transformer hero in their mythology, a revered human-like supernatural being who created people, shaped the world into a better place for them, and taught them the arts of civilization. Kokum-Thina is somewhat unique in that she is female. The Blackfoot tribe have a married couple, old man and old lady, in this role. All the other Algonquin tribes we know of have male transformer figures. In Shawnee legends, Kokum-Thina is depicted as an old woman. Her name means our grandmother. and does not take part in any of the monster slaying or humorous exploits of other Algonquin Transformer heroes engage in. Kokumthina may originally have been important primarily as a grandmother goddess, similar to the wise grandmothers of other Algonquin mythology, Anishinaabe and the Wabanaki. Her role as Transformer is not mentioned in earlier collections of Shawnee legends and oral history, though that could have been an omission by the non-Shawnees doing their recordings. Guiding force. She's revered in her role in the creation of the world and for drawing the souls of the deceased up to heaven using a net. A symbol of nature and the earth, the concept of our grandmother is deeply tied to the earth and the natural world, embodying a benevolent and nurturing maternal presence. Significance in Shawnee belief, she represents a positive and guiding spiritual force within the Shawnee worldview, distinct from other sometimes dangerous spirits. She's connected to the earth. Her association with creation and the earth highlights a fundamental connection between the Shawnee people, the land, and spiritual forces. Our grandmother had made the first man and woman. They became the parents of the Shawnee nation. The Great Spirit taught them how to behave. She taught them how to honor with her dances and ceremonies. She gave them sacred bundles to use and protect. She provided spirit guides for her people in the form of the bear, the eagle, the wolf, and the deer. There's the story of our grandmother weaving a net. When her work is finished, it will be dropped over the world and then pulled toward the heavens. Only the souls of the good people will be caught in the net and join her for a better life. The bad people would fall through the net. The world would come to an end. However, the stories say that a dog is there with our grandmother. Every time she turns her back, he undoes the work that she has done. In that way, her work will never be finished and the world will never be destroyed. Our grandmother, Kokumthina, is the Shawnee female creator, as I said earlier. In the book, The Encyclopedia of Native American Religions, Arlene Hirschfielder, and Paulette Mullen report that Kokumthina is the female deity of the Shawnee people who gave them a code of laws and most of their principal religious ceremonies. Arlene and Paulette also report it is believed that Kokumthina sometimes appears on Earth to observe the performance of the Shawnee religious ceremonies. Hunting was a vital part of Shawnee subsistence, and religious rituals were often an important part of hunting. In his book, The Shawnees and the War for America, Colin Calloway writes, in the Shawnee world, humans and animals communicated. Hunters dreamed the whereabouts of their prey and offered prayers to the spirits of the animals that gave their bodies so that people might live. In order to maintain the harmony between humans and the animal people, and between humans and the plant people, it was necessary to conduct certain rituals to keep the world in balance. Among the Shawnee, boys would go out into the woods to fast and to seek a spirit helper at the age of 12 to 13. According to James Howard in his book, In the Ceremonialism of a Native American Tribe and Its Cultural Background, the spirit helper would give the faster instruction in some area when usually healing and would also promise aid in future years if the faster would call upon it in a proper manner. The Shawnee were originally given their bundles by our grandmother at the time of creation. Since that time, items have been added to the bundles, according to James Howard. Each of the sacred bundles is assigned to the care of a designated custodian, who is always a man and a person of high moral character. The bundle is kept in a structure which is separate from the keeper's home, James Howard also writes. The bundles are treated much as human beings, and it's believed that they may become cramped from resting too much in one position. Therefore, the position of the bundles is regularly shifted. Ceremonies. There's a bread dance. I'm not even going to try to say this in Shawnee because obviously I'm not and I butcher the words. So we'll just say the bread dance is an important Shawnee ceremony which is traditionally held in the spring and in the fall. It's the principal event of the ceremonial year. The ceremony was given to the Shawnee by our grandmother, who sometimes appears on Earth to observe the ceremony and to participate in the singing. According to Arlene Hirschfielder and Paulette Mullen, the ceremony customarily consists of 8 dance episodes, including a woman's kokiki, or cluster dance, and a pumpkin dance done by both males and females. In the spring, the role of women in the ceremony is predominant, and this ceremony asks for fertility and good crops. In the fall, the men lead the dancing with their role as hunters is emphasized. The spring dance asks for an abundant harvest, while the fall dance expresses thanksgiving and asks for abundant game. Arlene Hirschfielder and Paulette Mullen report 12 male hunters provide squirrels or other game, while 12 female cooks prepare Shawnee cornbread. The foods are displayed until the conclusion of the ceremony when they are exchanged by the men and women. The green corn dance was held in August, which marked the first corn harvest. Arlene Hirschfelder and Paulette Morgan report vegetables and other produce, along with kettle of corn soup, are displayed in the middle of the dance arena, as is the bread dance. 12 female and 12 male dancers are selected to participate. The women began dancing after a prayer, and the bundle keeper and 6 sets of dances are performed alternatively by women only and by men and women dancing together. After a concluding prayer, the food on display is distributed. Social dances considered an important part of the ceremony because they please the Creator and are held during the night. In a chapter of the Shawnee in the Handbook of North American Indians, Charles Callender reports, on this occasion, persons were absolved of misconduct and all injuries except murder were forgiven. The green corn dance lasts 4 to 12 days. And then there's the buffalo dance, which was traditionally held in late August or early September. This dance was originally given to Tecumseh by the buffalo, his guardian spirit. 2 kettles of corn mush were prepared for the dance, as this dish was favored by the buffalo. The ceremony included body painting and 8 sets of dances, which were performed by men and women. The final element of the dance was a mock battle for the corn mush, which was then eaten. Social dances often followed the ceremony. The buffalo dance was conducted outside the ceremonial grounds used for other ceremonies because it did not come from our grandmother. The ride-in and war dance is held in August. This ceremony originated with our grandmother. It includes a ceremonial horseback parade and war dance. A sacred bundle is opened at a distance from the camp and is followed by an early morning horseback parade around the camp. The ceremony includes singing, dancing, ceremonial feasting, and the recitation of the war honors. The Shawnee ritual football game is a sacred ritual consisting of a game played by men against women. It's a ritual that is pleasing to our grandmother and to the Thunderbirds. It also brings rain and fertile crops. In the game, males can move the ball made of buckskin stuffed with deer hair only with their feet, while females are allowed to carry it in their hands. Next isn't exactly a legend, but it's about death in the Shawnee culture, so I thought I would include it because I thought it was kind of interesting. Among the prehistoric 4 ancient people, ancestors of the Shawnee and others, the dead were buried in graves which were lined with stone slabs. Bodies were usually fully extended, but some were buried with the knees flexed. Graves were placed underneath the floors of houses and beneath mounds of earth. Burial mounds usually contain alternate layers of earth and bodies. In historic times, the Shawnees often buried the dead in a similar fashion using stone slab graves. Among the Shawnee, funeral rites usually lasted 4 days. The body was buried on its back in an extended position with the head towards the west. Prior to burial, friends and relatives would dress and paint the body. Before the grave was filled, friends and relatives would sprinkle small amounts of tobacco over the body and ask for the soul not to look back or to think about those remaining behind. The Shawnee also held an annual death feast to honor the spirits of the deceased. This ceremony was not a public performance, but was a family ritual held in the home. Food would be prepared and set out on a table. One person would be selected to speak to the spirits. Besides telling them that they are fondly remembered and that the food has been prepared in their honor, the speaker may request that they not disturb the living. The feast then remains on the table in a darkened room for several hours to allow the spirits to consume the spiritual essence of the food. When the family returns to the room, they may eat the food. Blue River legend of the Shawnee Princess Ava. During the time the Shawnee lived in our county, horse racing had become a very popular, highly contested sport among most of the Indian tribes, and the Shawnee were fiercely competitive in the sport. At some point, they constructed a racetrack very near the present-day site of Fredericksburg and hosted regular events to test themselves and their ponies against neighboring tribes. The impression of the track was reportedly still visible into the 1950s when it rained a fair amount. The enthusiasm the adults had for the sport was quickly recognized and adopted by the Shawnee youth. Both young teenage braves and young girls tried to racing their ponies through the hillsides of Washington County at any opportunity afforded to them. Chief Four Toes' children were no different. He had a daughter, Princess Ava, who adored horses and similarly relished the excitement of racing, particularly proving her merit and skills against the boys. One day, while engaged in such a race against other youth from her father's band of Shawnee, young Ava plunged her pony into the Blue River, near the end of the Buffalo Ford. When she did, her horse crashed into a sunken treetop that was hiding underneath the water's surface. flipping Princess Ava backwards into the rushing river. Little Ava's head struck a giant rock in the water, and she lost her young life that day. Again, we postulate most, if not all, of the Shawnee population had migrated away from Washington County during the Great War Chief Tecumseh's Indian Confederacy recruitment campaign, which began in 1807 and concluded with the outbreak of the War of 1812. So we assume Chief Four Toes and his band left sometime during that time frame. However, in 1816, the year of our statehood, and roughly a year after the war had concluded, pioneer Jacob Horner, who would later become the first postmaster of Fredericksburg, traveled up the old Buffalo Trace and paid Mr. Linthicum $25 for the lands he had previously purchased from the Shawnee Indians. Shortly thereafter, Mr. Horner erected an inn and tavern to serve the weary pioneer immigrants traveling into the trail to Indiana, and was quite successful in this adventure. Then, according to the Horner family legend, sometime in 1817, there came a knocking at the door in a late afternoon. Upon opening the door, Jacob discovered an elderly Shawnee Indian man holding a peace pipe. Jacob invited the man inside, but he refused to enter unless Jacob would come outside and share in smoking the peace pipe with him. Mr. Horner agreed, and the two men found a comfortable spot under a big shade tree to sit down, smoke, and converse. The Shawnee man introduced himself as Chief Four Toes and explained that this was the previous location of his village, and through the years of the war he had longed to return to his favorite hunting grounds in the Blue River Valley. The two men smoked and talked for a while before Jacob invited Chief inside for dinner with his family. During dinner, Chief Four Toes relayed the Horner family his other reason for returning to the area, telling them of the tragic demise of his young daughter, the Princess Ava, and his desire to honor her memory in the place she had died. Inevitably, Jacob Horner extended an invitation to Chief Four Toes to stay with his family at their inn. The chief heartily agreed and ended up staying with them for 3 years, sharing an upstairs bedroom with Jacob's younger brother, John Horner. During his stay, Chief Four Toes would frequently wade out to the rock in Blue River that claimed his daughter's life. He would sit atop the rock, wash his hands in the water, chant prayers, and weep for young Ava. Before departing the Horner family, the chief respectfully asked them to honor Ava's memory in his absence, and the family promised the aging Indian she would not be forgotten. John Horner took Chief Four Toes in his wagon to a shipping port near the Falls of the Ohio in 1820. Here the chief met up with many other local Indian tribes, including Delaware, Munsee, Wyandot, and other Shawnee, as they were being forced westward by the military might of the United States government. The chief and the other Indians took a steamer down the Ohio towards the Mississippi and the new reservation lands in Kansas and Oklahoma, most departing this land of the Indians never to return. The Horner legend goes on to report that even after Chief Four Toes was relocated west of the Mississippi, he continued to periodically return for extended stays for many years, lodging with the Horners, hunting with Jacob and John, and honoring the memory of his daughter with his normal rituals. When exactly the chief stopped visiting Washington County is lost to history, but the Horner family assumed that the sad old man had finally passed away. Through the years, the legend of the Shawnee Princess Ava continued, and several reputable Fredericksburg citizens claimed young Ava's spirit could still be found some nights riding her horse along the banks of the Blue River. One such story was related to the late, great, longtime Historical Society member Ben Weathers by longtime Fredericksburg resident Laura Martin before her passing. According to Miss Martin, one morning in the early 1900s, she was out on the porch before sunrise on a late autumn morning, doing the chores of shaking rugs and sweeping off the porch. It was a very foggy morning, which was commonplace in the fall, living so close to the river. Suddenly, some movement along the riverbank caught Laura's attention, and through the gauzy pre-dawn light, she saw a young Indian girl riding a pony, emerging through the misty fog. Mrs. Martin said that she was frozen with bewilderment as the young girl rode up and down the east bank of the river as many as 3 or 4 times before she simply dissipated into the fog. Ben Weathers claimed he heard nearly identical stories while growing up in that area from later descendants of the Horner family and members of his own family who claimed they had encounters with the spirit of Princess Ava. Ben said he camped out at least 3 times along those banks hoping to catch a glimpse of Princess Ava, but was never fortunate enough to have an encounter. Perhaps Ava's spirit still seeking a better crossing point in the river, or maybe she continues to ride even today in search of her missing people. So I got that from a website, and I forgot to write down what the website was. I'll include it in my notes. I found another creation story by Suburban Cowgirl 22 on WordPress. Our grandmother created the world. We sometimes call her Cloud. In the beginning there was nothing. She came down from above and made a turtle. Our grandmother next created the earth, which was supported on the back of the turtle. Our grandmother shaped the earth into mountains. She created forests and prairies. She also made rivers, lakes, and marshes. Animals and people came to life on the newly formed land. During this time, our grandmother lived on the earth while her grandson, who was called Rounded Side or Cloudy Boy, and a small dog. Our grandmother encouraged Rounding Side to be well behaved. Don't do this and don't do that, she told him. But the boy always wondered, why does she have these rules? Despite his grandmother's instructions, Rounded Side did whatever he wanted. One day he ran away to a forbidden place where he encountered a fish monster with a huge stomach. Rounded Side went home, but he was curious about the fish, so the next day he decided to return to this strange place. When he arrived, he rushed over and stuck a knife into the stomach of the fish monster. Water gushed from the cut, and the boy ran for his life. With the water rushing after him, he raced home to his grandmother. Together they jumped into a boat and escaped the flood. However, all the people were drowned. Gazing upon the floodwaters, our grandmother did not know what to do. She called upon Crawfish and asked him to plunge into the depths of the water and bring back a little mud. He did as he was asked, and our grandmother took the mud from his pincers. Crawfish dove into the water again and again, returning with some mud each time. Our grandmother then called upon the Buzzard. You must dry this mud, she told him. So Buzzard rubbed the mud on his wings and flew away. As he flew, air flowed over the wings and dried the mud. While the floodwaters receded, there was the earth again, but the ancient people who had all died. So our grandmother created new people. She did not make Shawnee first, but began with a Delaware man and woman. She placed them on the east side of a fire she had kindled. Then she created one group or division of the Shawnee in the form of an old man and woman. She next created a young couple whose children would eventually form the other Shawnee divisions. As she made these people, our grandmother and Rounded Side went back to their home in the sky. But the boy told her, I want to go back and hunt deer. Instantly suspicious, our grandmother cautioned him, do not tease that young couple. But the boy went immediately to the couple and made fun of the young man and woman for not being able to have children. They had been infertile for 2 years because our grandmother had not made them properly. But she corrected her blunder, and the couple had twin boys who started the other divisions of the Shawnee. Our grandmother did not object when Rounded Side wanted to create all other natives so that the Shawnee would have plenty of friends and enemies. Once all the people were created, our grandmother showed him how to hunt game and gather plants for food and medicine. She taught them how to grow corn and other crops. She taught them how to build houses and gave them laws that they could govern themselves. With the help of her grandson and the spirits known as the Thunderbirds, our grandmother gave sacred pacts to people. She taught them the ceremonial dances and other religious practices. Because of our grandmother and Rounded Side, the Shawnee have been able to prosper for many generations. So that's not a huge difference from the other story, but I just thought that one was kind of interesting. And not a whole lot of stories on these, but I feel like, we covered some of that stuff. I'd like to talk about Tecumseh's prophecies and curses, but I think I'll leave him for his own episode. There's a lot about him, so we'll skip that for now. So spooky month is coming up, my favorite time of the year. On my TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, I'm going to do a daily video of an Appalachian cryptid in October, so get online for that. I'm hoping to do a month of spooky episodes on here, so of course the first Monday of October will be Haunted, North Carolina. But you'll have to wait and see what the other episodes are. To be honest, I don't have them all figured out just yet. I'm working on that. But I'm sure they'll be great and spooky. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode. As always, thank you for listening. You can follow me on social media under Poison Appalachia. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, Lemonade, TikTok, Blue Sky, and YouTube. If you could, on the podcast platform you listen to, could you please like and rate me and share me, please? Let everyone know about the podcast. Thanks, and have a great week.